Okay, so we're going to be looking at preflighting a document. So the document that I'm working with is called Preflight, and it's a zip folder that you can download from the link in the description and just extract it and open the Preflight InDesign file. So I've got some notes in the margins here just to remind me what I need to do. But what we're going to go through very quickly is the sort of things that you need to check in a document to pre-flight it for print and to make sure everything is okay. So the first thing I'm going to look at is this background image. So what you want to do is go to your links panel, and there the image is highlighted, and make sure that you open up this bottom section here and have a look at the details. So it says here actual PPI, pixels per inch, that's your resolution, 72. Effective PPI, 172. So we know that for print, effective PPI should be at least 300, or exactly 300 ideally. So this image is actually being, it isn't the correct resolution. Plus also it's being scaled to 42%. So what you ideally should do with your images when you're using them, and I've made that note in the margin here, is you should open them in Photoshop, you should color correct them, you should make sure that you size them to roughly the size that you want and the resolution you want, and you can also convert them to CMYK. Some people do that, some people don't do that. I generally don't do that as a habit because the PDF format actually handles RGB images quite well, but I'm going to do it in this case just to show you the process. So this image is not sized correctly. So what I'm going to do is select it, and in my links panel, I'm going to go to the options here, and I'm going to say edit with Adobe Photoshop. And what I want to do is crop it to the correct size. So I've got my crop tool here, and I'm going to change my setting up the top here to width times height times resolution. So I know that A4 is 210 millimeters by 297 millimeters. And I also know that it should be 300 pixels per inch resolution. Now I have to accommodate a bleed here. So I'm going to say 210 plus 5, okay, so that's 215 millimeters, because there'll be a bleed on one side, because remember it's facing pages, and then for top and bottom it'll be 297 plus 10, so 5 at the top, 5 at the bottom, so plus 10. Okay, so that will accommodate a bleed. So now I've got the correct size. I'm just going to apply that, and I then want to do a little bit of color correcting. So I'm just going to do a very basic one here because this isn't a Photoshop lesson. So I'm going to go filter, camera raw filter, and I'll just push up the exposure a little bit, push up the contrast. Let's go to color, increase the vibrance. And generally CMYK images need a little bit more of a punchy color because they tend to wash out a little bit. So I'm just going to push the contrast up a bit and the shadows down a bit. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to convert it to CMYK. So image, mode, CMYK, and say OK. And now I'm going to save it. And when I switch back to InDesign, it will update. I now need to change my fitting settings. So I'm going to right click and say fitting, fit content to frame. Okay, and if I have a look now, you'll see that my actual PPI is 300 exactly, and my effective PPI is pretty close to 300. And my scale is pretty close to 100%. So that's perfect. So I'm only going to do it for this one image. If you are absolutely OCD about your pre-flighting, you should actually do this with all your images. I'm not going to do that with all my images. I would say that if you don't have the time for that, just make sure you're not placing massive images into a tiny little frame in InDesign. It's just wasteful. But generally, if your images are roughly the right size and the resolution here, the effective resolution is close to 300, you're good to go. All right, so that is the background image. Now with text, I have turned all of the text in this document to outlines, which is a fairly good pre-flight practice because it means that nothing can be lost in translation in terms of fonts when you send your job to the printer. You may not need to do that. It all depends on the fonts you use and the printer who you use. But what I have done here is just one piece of text that is still live text. And I'm using a font that you probably don't have. So when you open it up, you may find that this area is highlighted in a background pink highlight, indicating that it's a missing font. So the font is actually a Creative Cloud font. It's called 8 Heavy. But how do you fix this? Well, the one way is to go to Type, find Replace Font, and go and find the font that's missing and replace it with another one. Or you could install the font that you need. So those are two options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just fix a few things here, and then I'm going to convert it to outlines. So you can see that this is overset because we have this little plus button here. So the first thing I need to do is to make sure that this box is big enough to take the text. And let's just make it longer. I want the text to be on one line here. Okay, so it's not fitting, so I'm just going to select the text and just bring the font size down. Let's say to 10. I'm also going to center it. And let's put that in the middle there. Whoops. Okay, once I'm happy with that text, to convert it to outlines is Type, Create Outlines. And you must be on your selection tool, not the type tool. Okay, so this is no longer typed, so it's safe for the printer. So just remember, if you do convert any text to outlines, you should also save a version of your document without conversion so that if you need to go back and edit, you can. All right, so that's text converted to outlines and fixing of the overset text. Then you need to handle any spot colors. So in your whole document, you need to check, are there any non-process colors? So I'm going to go to Window, Output, Separations Preview, and I'm going to change the view to Separations. And I can see here that there's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is your process colors. And then there's one extra here, purple. So I want to see, what is that purple? Well, it's here. So if you planned on a spot color, maybe even you're using the spot color to tell your printer that that needs to be a varnish or something like that, you could do that. But in this case, I've made it a mistake here. I want it to be processed. So I could go to my options menu and go to Ink Manager and choose all spots to process. But what I'm going to rather do is a more permanent solution, which is go to my swatches panel, double click on that purple color and change from spot to process. And then as soon as I press OK, my separations preview updates, and now I've only got process colors. So that's the next step in pre-flighting, is make sure that all your colors are processed, or if you do have spot colors, that you did want those. All right, so that is spot colors. I'm going to delete that. Let's go to the next page here. And let's see what we need to do here. Okay, there's nothing to do there. This is the part that I want to check. So we're going to look at transparency. So this double page spread has transparency in it, and transparency can affect your final result. So it can result in text being rasterized when you don't want it to be rasterized because it'll be blurry. So you need to check for that. So first of all, I just want to select this image here and bring it into the right layer, and also to rotate it. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So you go to Window, Output, Flattener Preview, and choose Transparent Objects. So it shows me that there's a transparent object behind the text here, and there's a transparent object behind these three images here. More importantly, what is going to be affected by that transparency? So all affected objects. And you can see that it's showing me that all of the red here is going to be rasterized. It's going to be turned into an image. If your printer can't handle transparency, so a lot of printers can these days, but I always think rather you control this than rely on your printer getting it right. So what I notice here is that this some like it hot text is also being rasterized. So there's a reason for that. And the reason is that this text is actually behind this transparent object. So let's fix that. I'm going to select that text, and in my layers, you can see, yes, indeed, that text is on the wrong layer. So I'm going to move it up to the text layer and then refresh. And you can see now that text is not being rasterized. So this is an acceptable result. So just make sure that you check that no transparency is going to cause unwanted rasterizing of text. And the best way to get around that is to make sure all your text is on a layer above all your other design work. All right, so that is dealing with transparency. Then final page here, there's a missing image here. So if I select this and I go to my links panel, oh, there isn't a missing image. It must have reconnected. Okay, so I'm going to force this error. I thought I'd actually built this error in, but let's just go in here. Okay, here it is here. This is the image. So I'm just going to say surfer dude XX. Oh, it's there. Okay, so I'm going to delete that surfer dude. Yeah. All right, so now you can see in my links panel it says, oh, there's a missing image. So even though I can see the image, it's just a proxy of the actual image. The image is missing, and that's going to cause you problems. You need to check for this. So I'm going to relink to the correct image, or you can go and find the image and put it in the right place or rename it or whatever. So I'm just going to select and go to relink, and it will be Preflight links, and it will be surfer dude XX. Okay, so now that is fixed. So now we've done our pre-flighting, we need to also look at our live pre-flight here. So the live pre-flight panel is constantly checking your document to tell you if there are any errors. So it would have told you there was a missing link there. It would have told you that there was overset text. It might have even told you that there was a spot color being chosen, but it's not going to tell you everything. You can customize your pre-flight panel so that it checks for everything. I'm just using it as it comes out the box. So you can see that if I take this text on the side and I make it overset, it's checking, and then it's going to, let me put it on the document here. It says one error. And if I go in here to my pre-flight panel, it says one text error, it's overset text, and this is where it is, and it will highlight it for me. Okay, so just keep an eye on your pre-flight panel and make sure that there are no obvious errors here. I'm going to get rid of that. All right, so now that we've got everything done and we're ready to actually start saving out our document. So there's two stages. One is to package, which is to take your entire project, collect all your files together into one place for archiving or portability or handing over to your client, whatever. And then the second one is to make a print-ready PDF. So packaging is pretty simple. You go to File and Package, and it's going to give you some, these are not critical errors, it's just warnings saying that 13 of my images are RGB. So remember, I converted the one image to CMYK, the rest I didn't. So you could go and convert those images to CMYK. I generally don't bother. Once you create a print-ready PDF, it will do that for you. But you could do that if you really want to be thorough. Otherwise, there's no other major errors. So I'm just going to say Package, and it says it must be saved. Okay, I'm fine with that. And then I'm just going to make a folder on my desktop with brochure. Okay, and it says here, do you want to copy fonts? Yes, I do. Copy link graphics? Yes. Update link graphics in package? Yes. I'm going to leave these ones out. I'm going to include an IDML. I'm not going to include a PDF because I want to create the print-ready PDF myself. So then I'm going to say package, and you'll see that it makes a folder. Just go here and brochure. and it puts the IDML, the INDD, and the links in there. Notice there's no fonts folder because all the text was converted to outlines. But if you didn't do that, it will put the fonts in there so that when you open it up again, they will be available. So that's packaging. The second step is to make your print-ready PDF. So let me just go back to the cover. So we go File, Adobe PDF presets, and the one that we want to choose is PDFX 1A 2001. Now you can choose 2008 if your printer supports transparency, but PDFX 1A 2001 is sort of the bulletproof preset for all kinds of printers. It's the one that you're most likely going to get a predictable result, so I stick to that. Okay. And then I'm just going to put it in the same folder as my brochure, and I'm going to call it Print Ready. Okay, and then just a few things here. Make sure that you put View PDF after exporting on. Make sure you put spreads on so that it doesn't go page, 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 but it does the double page spreads. And then under marks and bleeds, make sure you say all printers marks, and that you say use document bleed settings, and then export. And once it's finished, it should open in your PDF viewer. Okay, there we go. So you can see that it's got all my printer's marks, and let's just fit this. All my printer's marks, and it's got double page spreads, and this now is ready to go to the printer. So this is a print ready PDF. Okay, so that's the pre-flight process. If you follow these steps, you should be safe and your printer should be sufficiently impressed.